Now, once again, Raymond Arroyo.
Welcome back to The World Over. Can lawmakers pull together a comprehensive tax reform package in this chaotic environment here in D.C.? And will the ongoing Russia investigation stop the Trump agenda in its tracks? Here with analysis is CNBC senior contributor Larry Kudlow. Welcome back to the show, Larry.
Thank you, Raymond. Pleasure, as always.
Well, I got to start with Robert Mueller, who's investigating, the special counsel investigating this Russia probe. He's impaneled the grand jury. Apparently, subpoenas have been issued looking into that matter of Don Jr. meeting with Russian lawyers. Your thoughts on this? Will this stall the Trump agenda, this storyline?
I don't believe it will. I mean, obviously, I'm not an expert. I'm not involved. There's already a grand jury impaneled in Virginia, which is investigating General Flynn, former NSC director. So there's a new one in Washington. What I basically know is thus far, there has not been one whit of evidence, not one iota, not one piece of evidence that suggests collusion between the Russian government and Donald Trump's campaign, or I'm sorry, Donald Trump himself. I mean, even the original New York Times story said there was no connection between the two. Now, campaign people, associates, I don't know. Okay, maybe that's what Mr. Mueller is going for. So I just don't know. Is it going to derail? No. I think tax cuts are coming. I think they're coming this fall. I think the stock market is sniffing that out. And I think the Trump tax and deregulation agenda is very much on track.
Well, you know, when you see these reports that they're investigating Trump Tower, President Trump's personal connections between Trump Tower and perhaps Russian figures, this is getting very personal. And we saw earlier, when it gets personal and the president's family is concerned, he has a tendency then to move into defense mode and sometimes says things, tweet things that could jeopardize not only his agenda, but his standing and expose himself legally.
Well, look, I sincerely hope Mueller's operation does not transgress, does not go so far. I mean, it was a narrow mandate, and the special counsel mandate that was rewritten a couple years ago is supposed to be narrow. Now, again, I'm not a lawyer, but that was my understanding. Regarding President Trump, look, he has said, Kellyanne Conway has said many times, if you hit him and if you insult him, he's going to fight back. And he has the right to fight back. And I think a lot of people admire the fact that he fights back. So be it. We'll see how this thing turns out. I can't possibly say, but there's never been, again, let me repeat this. There's never been a shred of evidence linking Trump in the campaign to Russia or to Putin. Not one shred.
Okay, and we had Alan Dershowitz on last week looking at the legal side of this. He said, look, there's not even a term, collusion. That's not a legal term. So, you know, people are trying to draw threads here, but there is no smoking gun. We'll see what Mueller can dig up or not. I want to move ahead to these leaked transcripts that broke today of the president in conversation with President Nieto in Mexico, with the Australian Prime Minister. These leaks are getting very serious. I mean, when they're at that level, this is cause for concern. Your thoughts on this and what can really be done? It bespeaks a White House that's out of control, and given what we're seeing over the last few weeks, it underscores that.
Well, Raymond, you know, it's tricky business. First of all, the leaks are awful. These are, in effect, national security leaks,
right?
Okay? As you said, this is from the highest level, president to president, and so forth and so on. I don't know if it's necessarily White House staff doing the leaks. It might be, but we don't know that. There are a lot of people in the various intelligence agencies who are career people or holdovers from the prior administration who might be leaking. I say might. I don't know. Let us hope, this is my key point. Trump has appointed General John Kelly, all right, retired four-star Marine, to be the chief of staff and to bring new discipline and cohesion to the operation. Kelly has already spoken about the leaks and how hard he's going to work to stop it, and that people will be fired automatically if they're found out. So I think that, the hope is that General Kelly, the new chief of staff, is going to bring a lot of things together and stop these leaks. The leaks themselves, they may be subject for court. I don't know, but they're very damaging.
Let's talk about Wall Street this week. It hit 22,000, first time ever. To what do you attribute that, Larry? Now, we saw the initial spike, and people said, oh, that was a Trump bump. What do you say this is? And given the health care reform going down in flames, one would have thought that the stock market would react negatively. Doesn't seem to be the case.
No, listen, as I've said so many times, profits are the mother's milk of stocks, okay? And what you're getting here is a new stream of very positive earnings reports from different companies. A lot of them are tech companies. Some of them were banks. One of them was Caterpillar, right? Industrial machinery that operates in China. A lot of these companies are overseas, 40, 50% of their revenues. It tells you not only that the American economy is okay, not necessarily fabulous, but okay, but there's some sense of improvement overseas in Europe. So I think the earnings report, very important. But I will say this. The market has had a lot of confidence. If you look at surveys of small business people, consumers, Business Roundtable, Trump has brought a sense of confidence. There's no two ways about it, going back to his original election last November. And I think that confidence remains. I think people are very happy with the appointment of General Kelly as the chief of staff. And I think, by the way, the tax cuts, the business tax cuts, which Steve Moore and I and Steve Miller and Steve Mnuchin worked on during the campaign, those tax cuts are very much alive, with or without health care reform. And
but wait a minute, Larry.
That we're going to see.
Congress people tell me without health care reform, you can't get the budget cuts, and therefore you can't find the money to fund the tax cuts. How can you do one without the other? You needed health care reform, and that still seems to be the operating math on the Hill.
No, I'm here to say that's not true.
Oh, okay.
I know some people made that argument. I'm here to say, look, I'm a former associate director of OMB, the Budget Bureau, under Ronald Reagan. It's not true. They were looking for some savings out of health care. Okay, fine. However, the key to this whole issue, business tax cuts, maybe individual tax rates as well, is the growth rate of the economy can move from 2% to its historic norm of 3% or better. If you build in 3% economic growth, then you're going to pay for everything, okay? You'll yield about $3 trillion over 10 years above the current baseline. So we didn't need health care. What we need is get the corporate rate down to 15% for small and large businesses, repatriate $3 trillion, expense new business equipment, and perhaps double the standard deduction for middle-income people. That's our three easy pieces from Steve Moore and me. I think that's very doable. I think the president's 100% behind that. If they do more, fine. But I'm saying that's your basic tax cut package. I think it's coming, and I think the stock market sniffs out that now that health care is back burner, let's go to tax cuts. Make a big difference.
And you think it's going to pass? Even that Senate? You think you can get those tax cuts through the Senate?
I do. Now, that doesn't mean it will. You're asking a tough question. You have to forecast senators. There's a lot more agreement. Let me put it to you this way. There's a lot more agreement on the tax reform package and the tax cut package than there was on health care. Much more. And I think you'll find in the next few weeks, the Republican Party will coalesce around a good plan. They're working with the White House, and they have been for a while. So there's much more agreement. Then you have to mark it up in the House and get it on the House floor, mark it up in the Senate and get it on the Senate floor, and then reconcile it into an FY18 bill, which requires only 51 votes. A lot of people, Mitch McConnell, Paul Ryan, the President, the Secretary of the Treasury have said, we can do this. We can do this in August now. We can do it in September, October, and November. So I'm just going to say I'm still playing this on the optimistic side.
Okay, before I let you go, I need your opinion of this letter that came out of the Vatican last week. It was published in a Jesuit periodical, which has the imprimatur of the Vatican. It's reviewed by the Secretary of State. It was written by two close collaborators of Pope Francis, particularly a Father Spadaro, a Jesuit. And in it, it sort of condemned what they titled the collusion between evangelical Christians and traditionally minded Catholics. They almost suggested that this is an axis of evil bent on a type of theocracy. Your thoughts on this as a Catholic convert?
Well, I'm not sure what to say. I mean, I don't know why if evangelical Christians are working together with Catholics, I would say that's a good thing, not a bad thing. I mean, I'm strongly pro-life. I think you know that. The evangelicals are too. They may not agree on every issue, but why is that necessarily a bad thing? I'm not sure I get that, Raymond. Why? What was the logic? Why do they think this is so evil?
Well, the logic was a little hard to find, but they compared both evangelicals and Catholics in this alliance to Islamists who are, have a theocratic mindset, and somehow that these two religions are coming together to create their own theocracy in America. I think it's a very kind of misguided reading of the American political scene, A, and B, it might bespeak a bias in the minds of some of these consultants to the Pope, rather than a clear-minded appraisal of what's actually happening on the ground, politically or religiously or otherwise. I mean, I think it's good that you have religions collaborating around key points of interest and things they agree on.
I think I always believe that's what we wanted, to be ecumenical. I mean, first of all, any comparison with these radical Islamic terrorists is just crazy. With all due respect to whoever put this together, that's crazy, okay? And Catholics love America, evangelicals love America. I think you are seeing more of a coming together in the religious community. That's a good thing. This is a democracy. We believe in religious liberty. We believe in life for everyone, including the unborn. I just don't get this at all. And it sounds kind of nutty to me. Maybe I'm going to have to look into this. I don't know the details. But my first response is very negative to what the Vatican apparently is saying.
Larry Kudlow, always insightful. Thank you for the commentary. We will check in with you, particularly as these tax reforms make their way through Capitol Hill. Thanks, Larry.
Thank you very much.